Have you ever stopped to wonder why you were born into your specific family? Why certain people walk beside you while others drift away? Why your path twists the way it does, sometimes beautifully, sometimes painfully? Most people drift through existence, assuming that life unfolds by chance. Wins and losses, love and heartbreak, success and failure, all chalked up to fate or luck. But what if none of that were true? What if every step, every connection, every emotion you've ever felt was carefully arranged long before your first breath? Before entering this reality, before the body, before even the concept of time, you existed as pure awareness, no form, no boundary. In that state of clarity and freedom, you made a choice, not out of impulse, but out of a desire to evolve. You chose the experiences that would shape your soul's next chapter. It might sound surreal now, especially when you're dealing with chaos, hardship, or daily struggles, but look closely at your life. Think back to those unexpected turns, those encounters that changed everything, those moments of pain that later gave birth to strength. Were they truly accidents, or were they part of something much greater? Your entry into this world wasn't accidental. Neither was the environment you were born into, nor the people placed in your orbit. Every connection, every challenge, every moment of happiness or suffering was part of a greater plan. And that plan, it was yours. Ancient spiritual systems across cultures hinted at this long before modern spirituality caught on. Sacred texts from India, the teachings of Buddhist masters, mystical Sufi writings, all describe a soul that doesn't just float into life by chance. It selects, it intends, it designs, but don't mistake this for a rigid script. Life isn't about following a pre-written story without deviation. Think of it more like a blueprint filled with pathways. You laid out some major destinations, but how you get there, that's entirely up to you. So much of what we label as coincidence is actually the unfolding of soul-level agreements. Meetings that seem spontaneous were often agreed upon long before you had a name. Challenges that seem unfair were lessons, chosen from a higher perspective. And you're not here just to survive this journey. You're here to remember that you helped build it. You're not a victim of circumstance. You are the conscious architect of your experience. This doesn't mean life will be easy, but it does mean it's meaningful. It means you have more power than you were taught to believe. This might be the moment you start viewing your story through a new lens, one that recognizes purpose in the chaos, meaning in the mess, and intelligence in what once felt like misfortune. You are not random. Your life is not random. None of this is by accident. This isn't a modern fantasy. The belief that your soul makes choices before entering a body is not something born out of recent imagination or trendy spiritual circles. It's an idea as old as time itself, etched into scriptures, whispered in monasteries, preserved in chants and sacred symbols across continents. Long before scientific models and modern psychology tried to explain human behavior, ancient cultures spoke of a deeper intelligence guiding life. They didn't see birth as a random spark of biology, but as the continuation of a timeless journey. They knew life begins before breath. In the Vedic hymns, in the poetic verses of the Upanishads, in Buddhist scrolls that survived centuries, and in the secretive layers of tantric texts, this understanding is crystal clear. Life doesn't just happen to us, it's summoned by us. But it wasn't just in India where these ideas lived. In the mystical teachings of the Sufi dervishes, we find similar descriptions of souls that return, of wisdom earned through lifetimes. Even in the cryptic writings of early Christian mystics and the Hermetic traditions of Egypt and Greece, we see echoes of the same idea. The soul is eternal, and every incarnation is chosen with purpose. Tibetan Buddhism speaks of a mysterious phase between incarnations, a transitional space where the soul reflects and chooses. They call it the bardo, a liminal realm where one evaluates what has been lived and what must still be learned. Yogic philosophies explain that the next stage of existence is shaped not by luck, but by the momentum of consciousness, by how awake or unaware the soul was in its last cycle. What's remarkable is how cultures separated by oceans and language kept arriving at the same understanding. You are not here by mistake. They all agreed. This life isn't random. You chose it. You crafted it. You said yes to it, not from a place of punishment or obligation, but from a sacred longing to evolve. You selected your family, your body, your circumstances, not because they were easy, but because they offered you the exact conditions your soul needed next. So the next time someone tells you everything happens for a reason, Remember, it's not just a cliché. It's the quiet truth ancient civilizations already knew. We are not passengers, we are creators. Try to imagine a place where time doesn't tick, where space holds no shape, and where you, without a name or form, simply existed. Not floating, not sleeping, but fully aware. That's where you were, before here. Before this version of you ever opened its eyes, you were already somewhere. Not lost, not waiting, but observing, reviewing, preparing. That realm, impossible to measure by human standards, is where souls pause between lifetimes. It's neither heaven nor a dream. It's a domain of infinite clarity where everything that ever was and everything that could be is laid bare. You were there, and from there you made a choice. In that quiet yet potent space, you weren't running from anything. You weren't escaping. You were driven by one thing: the need to grow. That yearning doesn't come from pain, but from potential, a calling from within, whispering that there's more to learn, more to become. Even when surrounded by total peace, something deep within the soul wants to feel again, to understand what love means in a human body, to confront fear not from a distance but face to face, to be immersed in the raw texture of life with all its unexpected turns. And so you scanned the options. You studied what came before, every previous life, every unfinished lesson, every choice still echoing in the corridors of time. You saw where you had loved well and where you had chosen silence when courage was needed. You didn't judge yourself. That place doesn't hold blame or punishment. Instead, it offers reflection, honest, direct, and healing. From that point of total awareness, you began designing your next chapter. It wasn't random. You considered everything: the emotions you needed to explore, the challenges that would stretch you, the kinds of relationships that would push you into deeper understanding. You knew there would be struggle. You knew there would be loss. And still, you said yes, because something inside you understood. Experience is the only path to transformation. No book, no theory, no angelic realm can teach what a single day in the human world can. And so, long before you became who you are now, you carefully shaped the outline of this life, not with fear but with intention. Long before your first heartbeat, there was a space, a strange and silent expanse that doesn't exist on any map. You won't find it in a telescope or under a microscope, yet every soul passes through it. Some call it the Astral Field, others the causal dimension. In Tibetan teachings, it's known as the Sidpa Bardo. But no matter the name, this realm is real, and you've been there. It's not a place of roads or rules. It's a field of energy and knowing. Nothing needs to be spoken. Everything is felt. In that sacred state, you weren't weighed down by questions. There was no hunger, no fear, no ambition. There was only presence. You weren't lacking anything. You didn't crave more. You simply existed. Calm, whole, complete. Some might call that bliss, others divinity. Whatever the label, it was a return to origin. You were in full union with the source, whether you call it God, the universe, Brahman, or pure awareness. There was no separation, no identity, just one vast intelligence, breathing through everything. And in the heart of that oneness, you remembered. You remembered every journey you've ever taken, every lifetime lived, every rise, every fall. You saw the moments when you stepped into your truth and the times you turned away. You recalled joy, regret, triumph, silence. Everything you once thought lost was visible again. And still, through all of that completeness, something stirred, a tiny ripple in the stillness, a desire not driven by need but by purpose, a spark of curiosity. What else can I become? Because even perfection doesn't stop the movement of growth. Even peace, if left too long, begins to ask, what's next? And that's when the soul begins. Again, not out of boredom, but intention. Not because something is missing, but because something calls. And what follows is one of the most sacred processes in all existence. Planning a life, not to escape, but to evolve. You studied, you watched, you felt, and from that place of absolute clarity you started again. Imagine existing in a place of endless serenity. No noise, no hunger, no shadows, just stillness. Now ask yourself, why would any soul leave that? The answer isn't because it has to, but because it wants to. even in a space free from pain, something within the soul begins to rise. Not a scream, not a demand, just a quiet pull, a subtle urge to go deeper, to explore more, to feel something real and raw. Because stillness, while sacred, cannot teach what friction can. This is where the decision begins. The soul doesn't choose ease, it chooses meaning. And often, meaning arrives wrapped in challenges, like a diamond forming under pressure, like a melody born from silence, like strength forged in storm. Growth never comes from comfort. You knew that before you were born. That's why you didn't design a perfect life. You chose one that would shape you. You accepted moments of heartache. You allowed space for betrayal. You made room for grief. Not because you wanted to suffer, but because each of those experiences holds keys that open parts of your soul still waiting to be discovered. You saw the value in contrast. How could you understand connection without once knowing loss? How could you recognize love without ever meeting fear? So, with full awareness, you mapped out a path that would offer not only beauty and joy, but also discomfort and risk. Because you knew that's how real transformation happens. You didn't pick random parents. You didn't land in a random city. Even the body you wear was selected with purpose. You reviewed your past lessons and realized what needed more depth. Maybe this time you wanted to learn courage through failure, or compassion through heartbreak, or resilience through limitation. And so, you made agreements with people, with places, with situations. You stepped into the unknown with the full knowledge that it would test you. But that was the point, because only by living all of it, the wins and the wounds, could you remember who you truly are. This life is not a mistake. It's not a punishment. It's an invitation to grow, to break open, and to return to yourself. Every time you ask, why is this happening to me? There's a quiet answer waiting, because you chose to grow through this. What happens after one life ends and before another begins? Is there silence, a void, or something else entirely? There is a space, unseen but deeply real, where souls pause, not asleep, not adrift, but watching. This realm has no clocks, no borders, no names. Traditions speak of it differently. Some call it the Interlife, others the space between worlds. But what matters is not its name, but its function. Here, the soul reflects, not as a judge, not as a victim, but as a witness to its own choices. Every past action, every moment of kindness, every time it turned away, all of it rises like echoes. Through still water, the soul doesn't just remember, it feels. The laughter it sparked, the wounds it caused, the compassion it offered, the truths it avoided. This is not punishment, it is clarity, a mirror with no filters. And from this clear seeing, the soul begins to understand what still needs work, what was mastered and what was missed, what strengths were nurtured and what fears were left untouched. But it doesn't navigate this alone. In this sacred interval, guides appear, not as voices of authority, but as companions of light. They don't issue commands, they don't demand obedience. They present possibilities. Each path is shown like a story waiting to be lived, complete with joys, trials, and opportunities. Not every option is the same. One life might bring illness that leads to deep empathy. Another might hold the weight of loss, but unlock a well of inner strength. And then you choose, not blindly, not rushed, with full awareness of what each choice may bring. You decide where to be born, which family to enter, what culture, what body, what timing. You select your gifts and, yes, even your struggles. Not because they're easy, but because they'll teach you something no comfort ever could. What most forget is this: the soul doesn't write a script in stone. It designs a blueprint, flexible, living, adaptable. And at the heart of that plan lies free will. You are not bound to one path. You hold the power to shift, evolve, reroute at any time. The soul wanted growth, not control. So next time life feels like it's spiraling, remember, there's a reason you're here. And even more importantly, you helped write it. There's a rhythm to everything, a pulse behind the visible. You might not see it, but it's there, responding to every thought, every word, every decision. This is not superstition. It's not punishment. It's a principle older than language. What you send out always circles back. This is what many call karma, but not the distorted version people use to justify bad luck or sudden fortune. Not some cosmic judge waiting to deliver rewards or punishments. Karma is far more subtle and far more honest. It works like this. Every feeling, every intention, every movement of the mind creates energy. That energy doesn't vanish. it flows forward, seeking balance. Plant kindness, and somewhere in some way it blooms. Sow resentment, and eventually it returns, not to hurt you, but to teach you something you missed the first time. Life isn't just reacting to the past. It's responding to your current vibration. Everything you experience is shaped by what your soul has chosen and what it still needs to understand. Some events seem unfair, others make no sense, but beneath the confusion, there is structure. Sometimes you're offered healing because you once gave it. Other times you feel heartbreak because long ago you caused it. But karma is not a chain, it is a teacher. Its lessons aren't about guilt, they're about realization. Growth doesn't come from shame, it comes from insight. The moment you recognize the pattern, the energy shifts. That's the gift. Understanding, then transforming. There are layers to it. Accumulated karma, the sum of every intention, every action across lifetimes. Activated karma, the specific themes and lessons chosen to unfold in this current life. What's happening to you right now? That's activated karma. But what you do with it, that's your future being shaped in real time. You are not at the mercy of old stories. You are not stuck inside cycles unless you keep repeating them. Every small act, every decision to love instead of blame, to forgive instead of react, rewrites your direction. Karma isn't the end of the path. It's the map to self-awareness. And the more you understand it, the more gracefully you move forward. So when life feels heavy, ask, what is this moment trying to show me? Sometimes the deepest wisdom hides inside discomfort. And once you see it for what it is, a lesson, not a sentence, everything begins to change. Look around at the people in your life. Some make you feel seen. Others push every button you didn't know you had. But what if none of them were random? What if the most important relationships in your life were planned long before you arrived? Here, this is the hidden truth. Before birth, souls form agreements, not contracts in the legal sense, but energetic understandings. You and another soul look at each other and say, I'll play this role for you if you'll play that one for me. Some promise to support. Others volunteer to challenge. A few agree to break your heart, not out of cruelty, but to help you find a part of yourself you might never discover otherwise. It sounds impossible, especially when pain is involved. Why would anyone choose betrayal, abandonment, loss? Because from the soul's view, every interaction is a mirror, and the hardest reflections often teach the most. That parent who made you feel invisible, that friend who walked away when you needed them, that partner who opened you then left, each may have been part of a sacred arrangement, not to destroy you but to awaken you. This isn't about blaming others less, it's about understanding more. Soul contracts don't mean you're bound forever. They don't mean suffering is required. They mean some encounters are purposeful, even when they feel chaotic. We travel through lifetimes with clusters of souls. One lifetime, you're the mother. In another, you're the son. Next time, maybe best friends, or rivals, or strangers, with a single moment of impact. But through it all, one thing stays constant: the intention to grow. You've likely met someone who felt familiar, though you'd never seen them before, or someone who stirred something in you that words couldn't explain. That's not imagination, that's recognition. These soul groups don't disappear. Even when people leave your life, their energetic imprint remains. The lessons echo, the impact continues, and the more aware you become, the more clearly you'll see the design. No relationship is meaningless. No connection is truly forgotten. Each one is a thread in the fabric of your growth. So when someone enters your life and changes everything, good or bad, pause and ask, what are we here to teach each other? That question alone can shift everything. From the moment you chose to return to this world, you were never alone. Even if you don't remember them, even if you've never heard their names, they've always been with you. They aren't people. They don't age. They don't walk beside you in physical form. But they are real. They are your spiritual guides, not beings of control or authority, but guardians of clarity and truth. They don't interfere. They don't force outcomes. They offer light, subtle, steady, and patient. Before birth, when you stood in that timeless realm, your guides were there, not to make decisions for you, but to show you the possibilities. They reminded you of what you've already lived. They helped you see where you flourished and where you paused your own growth. They didn't shame you. They didn't rescue you. They simply pointed. This path offers strength. That one will challenge your pride. This one teaches forgiveness if you're ready to learn it. And you chose, not because they told you to, but because you knew what your soul needed next. Then you descended into the body, into form, into forgetting. And even as the noise of life drowned out your memories, your guides stayed close. You don't see them, but they're in the background, in dreams, in sudden clarity, in the stranger's words that somehow felt meant just for you. When you're stuck, they nudge. When you're ready, they reveal. When you're afraid, they wait. They will never override your will. That's the sacred law. You decide always, but they will whisper through symbols, through instincts, through the feeling that something is either right or deeply wrong. Your free will is never taken. It is honored. Your path was drafted before you arrived, but not dictated. At every crossroads, you hold the power to rewrite it. You chose this. Life, yes, but how you live it is unfolding in real time. Sometimes you take the harder road. Sometimes you delay the lesson. That's not failure, that's just a longer version of the same story. No prophecy, no chart, no external voice can predict your life completely, because at every moment, you're creating it. And your guides, they remain by your side, not to lead you, but to remind you you've always known the way. You made the plan, you chose the players, you even picked the scenes that would break you open. So why don't you remember any of it? Because the moment you entered this world, something sacred happened. A veil was drawn, not as punishment, not as deception, but as protection. This curtain of forgetting was placed gently, not to make you lost, but to give you the chance to rediscover everything from the inside out. If you carried every memory from every life, if you remembered every agreement, every heartbreak, every triumph, you'd never be able to truly live this one. You wouldn't fall in love freely. You wouldn't trust fully. You wouldn't feel surprise or grief or growth in the way this life was meant to offer. The forgetting allows you to feel things as if for the first time. It gives weight to your choices. It makes the story real, because real growth isn't memorized. It's felt and still. The truth leaks through in the quiet hours, in the pull toward people you just met, in dreams that feel more real than waking life, in the way certain places stir something in you that defies logic. These are fragments breaking through the fog, not full memories but signals, reminders, little flares from your soul that say you're more than what you've been told. Your journey wasn't erased, it was hidden, so you could find it again. And every time you act with love when fear would be easier, every time you forgive when revenge tempts you, every time you choose truth over comfort, you peel back that veil just a little more. This life wasn't given to you to be remembered. It was crafted to be discovered, moment by moment, truth by truth. And the real awakening doesn't come from recalling facts. It comes from recognizing that every moment, right now, is a chance to remember who you've always been. Let's get one thing straight. This world wasn't built for comfort. If you came here expecting a smooth ride, someone didn't tell you the whole story. Earth wasn't designed to be soft. It was made to test you, but not in the way schools do, not with grades or gold stars. This place teaches through friction, through contrast, through everything that makes your heart race and your mind question. This is not a mistake, it's the point. The soul doesn't evolve by staying in places of endless peace. It expands when it's forced to find peace in the middle of the chaos. That's why this planet holds everything: beauty and brutality, laughter and loss, silence and screaming. It's all here for you, because the only way to truly understand strength is to be knocked down. The only way to learn compassion is to feel pain. The only way to grow is to face something that demands you stretch. Time here is limited. Relationships shift. Bodies decay. That ticking clock isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. In other worlds, you remember everything. Here, you remember nothing on purpose, because only in forgetting can you learn what it means to forgive. Only in loss can you learn what it means to truly love. This planet offers you something sacred, pressure, and under that weight, the real you starts to shine. When things fall apart, it's not the end, it's the invitation. When you're stripped of what you thought mattered, what truly matters finally steps forward. Don't curse the mess. Look closer. There's something in it for you, a revelation, a release, a reminder. No, Earth was never meant to be perfect. It was crafted to be powerful. Every high and low, every twist in your story was placed there to help you remember that. You are more than your circumstances, and if you let it, this life, this strange, wild, beautiful test will do what no heaven ever could. It will shape you into someone who doesn't just remember their soul, but lives from it. When the last breath leaves your body, everything doesn't stop. It begins again, just in a different form. What you've called death your whole life isn't a wall, it's a door, and on the other side, a space that feels more like home than anywhere you've ever been. No clocks, no pain, no confusion, just clarity. Here the body is gone, but your awareness remains, sharp, complete, and free from the noise. In this space you don't just float, you review, not like watching a movie of your life, but reliving it. You feel the impact of your actions, the joy you gave, the pain you caused, but not as judgment. There's no courtroom, no punishment, only reflection. You see where you loved with open hands, you see where you clung out of fear, and then something else happens. You understand. This is the soul's classroom, and this review is one of its greatest lessons. It shows you not just what happened, but what it meant, and after that, you reunite. Not with everyone, but with the ones who've always walked with you, lifetime after lifetime, your soul group. You know them by feeling, not by face. They've played many roles in your story and you in theirs. There's no need for words, just recognition. For some souls, this is a resting place. For others, it's a launch pad, back into a new life, a new plan, a new layer of understanding. Why return, you might ask? Because the learning isn't done, because love always wants to go deeper, because your soul knows there's more to remember, more to give, more to grow, but not everyone returns endlessly. There comes a time when a soul has absorbed every lesson, balanced every cause and effect, and stood fully in its truth. That's when the cycle ends. In different traditions, they call it by many names: moksha, nirvana, awakening, liberation. But labels don't matter. What matters is this: it is the moment your soul no longer needs to be born again. Not because it escapes, but because it arrives. No more roles to play, no more illusions to pierce. Only a quiet return to what you've always been, pure, whole, aware. Some souls choose to stay there, finally at peace. Others, already free, come back, not to learn but to light the way. These are the souls you feel when reading words that move you, the ones behind voices that shake something awake in you, the quiet presence that reminds you you're not just living this life, you're remembering what it means to be infinite. And if reading all of this stirred something inside you, if it made you stop for a moment and breathe deeper, then write one word: awakening, because that word is not just a response. It's a signal, a turning point, a quiet agreement with your higher self that says, I'm ready to remember who I really am, and from here, everything changes.